Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Turnbuckle Club. My name is Jeremy Durgana, the official voice, and in today's special episode we are going to present the transcripts of an interview conducted with the oldest brother in the Hart clan, Mr. Smith Hart. The first question that we presented to Smith was, will we ever see the return of Stampede Wrestling in a Hart Dungeon Wrestling School? If it's an operation, who's running it and where is it? Smith's response was, well, in fact, Hart Brothers Wrestling University still exists through my brother Bruce in Calgary, although the dungeon itself has been sold and will likely never be used by family again. I myself occasionally take on students as well. As for Stampede, has seen many incarnations of rebirth over the last 15 years. Problem is the barriers to entry in today's marketplace are much more significant than at any previous time in history. Venues, ad rates, talent, and a bevy of other expenses make running at the same caliber as my father nearly impossible to sustain. Will another attempt be made? I'm sure at some point, someone, perhaps even I, with the input of and participation of my family, most especially Bret, Harry, and perhaps in time Natalia and TJ, may take another stab at it, depending on what opportunities arise. Our second question to Smith was, within the Hart family, which other brother could have made it as big as Bret and Owen? Is there another brother that could have surpassed Bret's accomplishments if given the opportunity? Smith's response was the following. With all modesty, I think everyone in the family might suggest me, as in Smith Hart. I can fully admit I had the opportunities, but my dedication at that stage of my life was more wanting to be a promoter like my father rather than a wrestler. I hated pumping iron with a passion, yet I loved the finite intricacies of submission wrestling much more than sports entertainment. Amateur wrestling was a science and pro wrestling is an art. I had good solid runs in Puerto Rico, Japan, England, and Germany long before the WWF ever expanded globally. But my heart has always been set in the creative aptitudes of this business. Smith also went on to say, I'd also suggest my brother Dean, who was probably the best wrestler in the family, but was not much bigger than Rey Mysterio, and also passed away in the prime of his life. The next question that was presented to Mr. Smith Hart was, what do you think of pro wrestling as an Olympic event, where you can have two representatives of a particular country put on a 10-minute match that's evaluated by a panel of judges? Smith's response was, I think that would be a tremendous idea of the IOC to entertain. Pro wrestling truly is a global sport, and if other judgment sports like figure skating, gymnastics, curling, etc. can be considered Olympic sports, then surely pro wrestling could have an appeal. Like figure skaters, most wrestlers are tremendous athletes. Problem is, the IOC would never take it seriously unless there was some precedent set with an independent international competition showing the viability. The next question was very interesting as it pertains to Bret's position back in 1997. The question was, if you were in Bret's position back in 97, how would you have handled the situation going into the Survivor Series? Smith's response was, my father always taught me that it's the promoter that signs your paychecks, and if the promoter wants you to drop 2 straight falls to his bedridden grandmother, then that's what you do with a smile upon your face. I understand where Bret stood on the situation of his global reputation at stake. Myself, I would have less concern of my reputation and more consideration with who and where my paychecks are coming from. The following question pertained to Owen's passing. We asked Smith how and why did Owen's passing tear the family apart. His response was, Martha, who never particularly liked or actually understood the wrestling business and hated being away for weeks on end, unlike the Stampede circuit, considered the needless death of Owen as malicious, high-handed, and deliberate. Bret, who still had bitter feelings about Montreal, was adamant that we didn't accept the initial 9-figure sum offered by WWE in person to my father and virtually agreed upon. With multiple 3rd and 4th generation Hart offspring, my parents were trying to maintain diplomacy, but the torment of losing a second son and the arduous court hearings aged my parents, especially my mother, horribly. They passed shortly thereafter. Despite the infighting and the effects of undue present and future financial hardship, we all realized Vince never sought any physical harm to Owen whatsoever. The following question relates to the world of mixed martial arts. So here's what we asked Smith. Who from the dungeon would have made an impact in MMA? Smith's response was, many of the wrestlers who worked with my dad in the dungeon during its heyday would have dominated MMA had it existed during that period. Most notably, George Gorjanko, Luther Lindsay, Ruben Jim Wright, Mad Dog Vachon, Billy Robinson, Gorilla Monsoon, Billy Jack Haynes, The Lethal Weapon Steve Blackman, Don Koloff, Willie Seymour, and especially Stu himself. But don't discount the future. I predict my nephew Harry to still have a dominant run in the world of mixed martial arts. The following question that we asked Smith was this: what was the general feeling towards the Harts from the WWE after the Montreal Screwjob? More specifically, were there reports of guys like Owen, Anvil, or Davey being politically ostracized as a result of the controversy? Smith's response was, "I've heard Owen may have been demoted after the allegation that he broke Steve Austin's neck, which caused typically undeserved political tension behind the scenes. But Jim Neidhart was famous within the office for indifference to schedules and was not considered a reliable trooper. Davey Boy may have been held back due to injury and pain." Our final question to Mr. Smith Hart was, amongst Tyson, Davey Boy Jr., Teddy, and Natalia, who do you think will be the first ever to receive a monster push from a major promotion? Is there another undiscovered talent from Calgary that we are unaware of? Smith's response was, "Depends on what you consider a major promotion. My nephew, son of Davey Boy Smith, presently known as professionally Davey Boy Jr. at 6'7", 270 pounds, is currently in the midst of a monster push in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Tyson Kidd, a well-schooled chain wrestler, is battling currently with Sami Zayn and Adrian Neville for the top spot in NXT as we speak, which may be the best produced show in the WWE right now. I'm compelled to include my nephew Teddy as someone with the credentials to be a top cruiserweight flyer. I argue that Teddy's in-ring abilities could have made him a bigger star than both Bret and Shawn Michaels combined had he not been so consumed with being a booker instead of a wrestler. As for yet undiscovered talent, there's a treasure chest of third and fourth generation superstars being groomed as we speak. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our exclusive interview with Smith Hart. If you'd like to contact Smith Hart with questions or comments, you can reach him on Twitter at SmithHart1. Thank you once again for tuning in to another episode of the Turnbuckle Club.